This is episode 106 of the Wilderness Locals podcast. On this episode, I sit down with my Alaskan brother, Tyler Freel. We shoot the shit, catch up, see how each other's seasons went. I explained to Tyler what a duotang is, and basically just do a whole bunch of catching up and shooting the breeze.
This podcast is brought to you by Kafaru International. Kafaru makes absolutely bomb-proof gear that is second to none. Kafaru.net, folks. There are a few groups in North America that put boots to the ground, like the Wild Sheep Society of BC. Contrary to popular belief, Wild Sheep Society BC isn't just about sheep. The majority of their projects benefit a variety of ungulates and other wildlife. Check them out at www.wildsheepsociety.com. Great folks over there. I'm a Monarch member. You should be too. And as always, go check out our friends over at Just Shooting Arrows. Just Shooting Arrows is BC's premier archery shop.
Cool. There, I hit record on it. Now we're live action.
Sounds good. I'll have to watch what I say now.
Yeah, just nothing incriminating. That's all.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute since we've caught up, eh?
Yeah, man. Well, I was just looking through mine because I've been so fucking busy this year. Like July was when we last really chatted, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's been a hell of a unproductive hunting season since then.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys got a caribou this year, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a little caribou. Took my boy out, my oldest boy. Took him out just on the last day of this one particular season, and shot a little bull right there in the evening. And I got him set up on it. I was we found him, and I was like, "You want to kill this thing?" Because he's only 7 years old, but he's a good shot. And yeah, sure, Dad would be his first animal, and he just good on him. He was just about to shoot, and the thing went in this patch of willows, and he's like, it's just moving too much, Dad. You should shoot him. So I was like, say no more, I'll shoot him. And I did, but yeah, no, I got a caribou and then went whitetail hunting in Kentucky, and it was just hot as hell. Deer weren't moving very good, and I ended up shooting a doe, but it was not the most productive trip. But yeah, struck out. I spent 27 days hunting sheep and then hunting moose, and fucking nothing to show for it.
But you got into some legal rams, I think, didn't you? Last time we talked, you said you did.
Yeah. We had a draw. We drew it. My buddy Frank and I drew a tag for an area that only has 4 tags, and there's not a ton of sheep, and they move around a lot. Which is what you say when you don't see shit. But it took us a week of walking to find a sheep, and we seen 3 rams, and one of them was legal, but he wasn't anything special. And at the time I thought he was 8, and I kind of wanted to kill him. But we, cooler heads prevailed. My buddy kind of talked me down from the ledge, and we had a lot more country we wanted to cover too. So kind of just walked by and let them. I got some pictures of him though. In hindsight, I think he was only 7 years old. So it was probably a good thing just to let him walk. But we saw one other group of ewes, but apparently, yeah, all the rams were elsewhere in that hunt area, because we walked for 14 days and didn't see anything special.
Did you guys fly into that spot?
Yeah. And, you always could second guess stuff. It could have been a little different if we, our initial plan was to fly in the day or two before the season started. So before the season, we could scout around with the airplane and see where stuff's at and make our decisions on where to go in based on that. And just, I don't know, the weather was bomb all summer for scouting. scouting from the air, and then we had bad weather, and my buddy got COVID like right before we were going to leave. So we decided we better let him heal up. And it was like 10 days later that we finally got put in there. And once the season starts, you can't scout from the air. So we had to just pick a spot to go in, and the wind, we had to kind of land on like our third choice of spots to go in, because the first two are just ridge tops that the guy was going to set us down in his cub. And it was blowing like 30 knots to 30 to 40 knots on the tail going in there to land. So it was just too risky.
I was going to ask you what the rules were on planes and scouting, because I follow that one guy. He's from Alaska, that Adam Grenda, I think his name is, or so. And like, he's got his own, he's got his own cub. So I don't know, like, I didn't know if you were allowed to, like, if you like guys like that are flying over moose and then landing and then waiting 24 hours, or they're not allowed to. Scout,
it's, you can pretty much do it with anything but sheep. People were basically just bitching, and there's some truth to it. They were bitching about people during the season, just blasting all over the country and buzzing sheep, and guys inevitably would be sneaking up on a sheep or watching a group of rams, and someone would go blast them out of the country, whether that's intentional or not. But guys that are getting close enough to knock the dust off their horns, it does get them up and moving. So anyway, for a few years now, it's technically been illegal to, I don't remember exactly the exact wording, but technically illegal to hunt sheep that you've seen from an airplane during the season. So I think it's kind of unenforceable, but I think it does keep most guys honest. Yeah. Because the troopers are going to get called if someone's, buzzing around big time. But so that's sheep, moose, caribou, anything else, you can scout for them. There's the lines are a little fuzzy on, like, because you're not supposed to harass any animals with your airplane. But that's kind of a fuzzy line there sometimes. And some people get pissed at people with airplanes, and we deal with it a little bit where we're hunting. Airplanes buzzing moose that you may have coming into a call or whatever. But if we're being honest, all of us, if we had our own cub, we'd be doing the same damn thing. So I can't blame a guy for, especially out where Grenda's at. Like, they got some monster fucking moose out there, and I would be doing the exact same thing, because most of those critters, no one's even gonna hunt them anyway. Yeah. They're just out there in the middle of nowhere with no access to them. Aside from airplane.
I watched a few of his YouTube videos, and I'm like, man, this guy's gotta be flying the country looking for big bulls and then landing and, whatever. I'm not saying he's breaking the law, but I was like, I'm like, if I had a cub, I'd probably do the same fucking thing too. So.
Oh yeah. And that's like, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about it or anything. It's like, you want to, if you're out in country that's inaccessible, if you don't, aside from an airplane, you got a kick-ass airplane, you can fly it well, and you can go find big moose. Why not go find big moose,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess it's really kind of no different than a guy, if you got a jet boat and you're just pounding up some little creeks, like, you're covering a lot of country too. The same kind of difference, right? So. Oh
yeah. I don't know. It seems like everyone finds something to bitch about or be jealous about. Shit, I'm jealous. I'd love to kill moose like that every year, but it's just not, it's not in the cards for where I have the ability to hunt, and that's okay. At a certain point, you gotta be okay with your circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just wondering, cause, he killed, I think it was he's killed some pretty good bulls, that guy. So.
Oh yeah. Real good bulls.
So where is he from you then? Like, different
countries? I don't know how many hundreds of miles. He lives in King Salmon, which is out on the Alaska Peninsula. So way, way southwest of here. It's been a long time since I've been out there. I don't know how many miles, but he's a long ways out there from me.
So how did I kind of listened to your guys' moose recap too. And that sounds like you guys were into some bulls, but it just didn't work out
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck was going on this year. It was just weird.
It was a weird year.
The first, yeah, I've heard it from a lot of people up here. I mean, there's a line between like it being a weird year and everybody who just didn't get shit saying it's a weird year.
Well,
but I feel like
I killed a bull and it was a fucking weird year, like a super weird year. But
yeah, I mean, I feel the same. Perhaps, if things would have gone a little differently, I would be saying the complete opposite. But yeah, literally the first night in moose camp, we had my buddy Frank's dad out there to hunt. And Frank was up. He had first choice this year, a bull, so he gave that to his dad. And so the very first night in camp, literally, we just hauled all our shit in there and got camp set up. And we're finishing setting up camp when we heard this bull start raking and start, talking back and forth with him. And over the course of a few hours, he wasn't very far. And we decided to just stay there at camp, even though we can't really see shit from camp. It's all burnt timber. We figured, well, if he's going to come, a lot of times they'll come fucking close. So we just figured why, in the spot we normally call from is, 3/4 of a mile farther away from him. So we're like, why, we're not going to walk away from a moose to find another one. Mm-hmm. And we just hung out and kept chirping at him occasionally. And he, later in the evening, he fired up big time and came just crashing through. And we got my buddy's dad set up on a canoe paddle. And then, it's just the greatest anticipation. Like you know what it's like calling them things in. It's like indescribable. You're like, oh, I can hear it. And you can hear them just glucking along and ripping shit up with their antlers. And you're like, pretty quick, I'm going to be able to see him. He's got to be right there. And you see a paddle, and then sure shit, here he fucking comes, just rocking straight towards us through the timber. And I wasn't really honestly paying that close attention to how far away he was. And I thought he was a little farther. I was just holding up with this decoy to just try and get him to see something that would get him, because we had to get him close. And so I'm holding that. In hindsight, I should have, scrapped the decoy. I should have just dropped back another 75 yards and called from behind, and maybe it would have been different, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. Anyway, this bull stops looking at us, and I'm like, man, that's a nice, like, look how wide he is. And Frank was looking at him with the binos, and he said he thought he was about 60 yards away, which checked out. So he said he was close enough that his antlers went out of each side of his field of vision in his binos. But his dad couldn't really see him well, and Frank dropped down to a knee. He's like, oh yeah, I totally could have sacked him. And then the bull, he just got nervous, and there had been another bull raking kind of off to our left, and that bull just turned to walk towards him. And I was trying to get his attention, and I took a few steps, grunted, and he bolted and ran. He ran 20, 30 yards, and then just kind of continued on his way. But shit,
yeah,
we figured we were in the money. And then 2 nights later, we called in a big bull, and I think he cut the scent of a cow that had kind of walked behind us earlier in the evening, because he was coming in, and then he just like beeline straight by us and never gave us a shot. And then after that was the last bull we seen. I mean, we heard bulls almost every day. We even stayed 2 extra days. We heard bulls every day almost. And they just wouldn't come in.
So what time was that, around like beginning of September kind of thing?
No, that was like we hunted the 13th to the 25th of September. So normally when they're just ripping normally.
Yeah. So they were firing it, was it really dry up there this year?
No, it was actually pretty wet. I mean, we had kind of a dry early summer, but there was nothing abnormal. It was maybe a little warm, but I mean, here's the thing: we would hear bulls chasing cows, off in the timber, and like that one bull, he got downwind of that cow and just went right after her. And we even had a bull, after a few days of this, we just switched to just cow calling, and had a bull we first heard him start grunting, maybe like less than half mile away, and heard him come along the edge of this lake that we could just see part of the lake through the timber, not all of it, but we could hear him come along the edge of the lake, and then you could hear him coming up through, like starting to push up through the brush because it's all like 8 foot tall, like dwarf birch and shit, between us and him. He was close and you could hear him coming closer. And then all of a sudden another bull come running across the backside of that lake, and he turned and went, and then you could hear him fighting out in the water, splashing around and shit. It's like the bulls are fighting, they're chasing cows, but they won't fucking come in. It was like insanely aggravating. Typically you'd hear a bull like do a couple series of grunts and maybe rake, and then they would just shut up. Yeah.
And I kind of found the same thing this year too. It was just like, I was finding bulls, but they weren't talking. It called in a couple smaller bulls, but it was so dry. We never got rain for like 3-4 months leading up to that moose rut. So yeah, all the little swamps and beaver ponds and shit I normally would hunt were kind of all dried up. And I think everything had kind of just dropped down to the main river, but it's hard to say. It was a weird year though, for whatever reason. I don't know why. I found the same thing. So. Yeah,
no, it seems to be the general consensus for all of us who didn't kill shit. So, whatever. Yeah, if that take that with a grain of salt. But I'm definitely. It was disappointing, man. It was fun. Like I love being out there moose hunting, but it is frustrating as shit when you're hearing them constantly and they just won't do what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Normally, like as a rule, man, like you've called in lots of bulls, and so have I. Like if you get a bull who's talking, like 8 out of 10 times, he's probably going to try and run you over. Like it's pretty uncommon for bulls to just kind of avoid it, especially like that time of year when they're really running cows and stuff too,
Yeah. And even if 7, 8, 9 out of 10 bulls hang up and don't like fully commit, you'll get them you can keep them talking for a while. Mm-hmm. It was just so aggravating. And the problem we normally have is that there's a lot of times enough bulls around that it can get like they get distracted sometimes, but that wasn't the case either. It was just pretty weird, pretty sorely disappointing.
So do you got any late season hunts that you can get some meat with and some caribou stuff or?
Yeah, there's some late season stuff going around. My buddy Frank just killed a bull in a late season. But that's all I can say about that. But and normally, like I'll apply. Last year I drew a late season like muzzleloader cow tag as kind of a backup, but I killed a bull. Normally I don't need them. But and there's like caribou seasons in October and stuff that you can, if you're willing to put the time in to go do this stuff, you can go get some meat. But we're not starving, but we're a little short on roasts and moose roasts and steak, which sucks. But we got burger, and we can chip away at all our other shit that I got in the freezer.
It's amazing how fast it goes when you're feeding kids. It doesn't last very long at all.
No, and it's not going to get any better here before too long. We're going to have to kill 2 of them a year, I think, just to get by.
Yeah. I have to every year. I got 4 kids, and every year I have to kill a moose or an elk. Both would be preferable because that's the bulk of my meat right there. Like, and we'll use that up in no time too. So.
Oh yeah, no, and all your ground meat. Like I couldn't imagine having to depend on deer if you couldn't shoot one every 2 weeks for the whole year.
Yeah. So with your sheep hunt, so you guys went in for, what'd you say, 15 days, and you guys got flown in.
Yeah.
What were you guys? What were you packing for a rifle on that one?
We had been just bringing one rifle on our trips when we go together, but we brought 2 this year. My buddy had backcountry, like Weatherby backcountry, the original backcountry ones, titanium, in that 6.5 RPM.
Oh yeah.
caliber, and then and that's a pretty kick-ass rifle. And then I brought a Christensen titanium, like Ridgeline titanium 308, and that's a pretty slick little rifle.
That's that Ridgeline. What's the other one called? The Mesa, I think, something.
The Mesa, yeah.
Mesa, yeah.
You can tell you're a Canuck with the Mesa.
Mesa, Mesa. I was watching a fucking deal on Instagram the other day, and there was an American and a Canadian, and they were like saying different things. Like, do you know what like a duotang is?
A duotang? I don't think I do.
So it's like a folder you put papers in, but in Canada we call them duotangs. Fuck, I pissed myself off.
That's funny.
I pissed myself laughing when they were going through the list.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, I know, and I did hear some bad reviews about that Christensen Arms stuff, but I mean, I don't know. You seem like you liked it, eh?
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty good rifle. Like some of the fine, and most of the stuff, like the stocks are like fairly drop in. They're not like really custom crafted stocks and custom fit to each action. I think a lot of people shitting on Christensen has to do with some issues they had back in the day. Because I mean, for a while I had heard like to steer away from them, but yeah, I haven't really had any bad luck with them. I bought one in 338 Lapua, and that thing's just a fucking shooter, with hand loads. The factory, I haven't had much luck with it with factory ammo, but I've got several hand loads with 300 grain Sierra Match Kings, 285 grain Hornady ELD match bullets, which those will freaking crush moose too. And the 275 grain ELD X's shoot really well through it. Like, and even lighter stuff. Like I just, for shits and grins, I tried some 225 grain, Hornady, like GMX, they're copper bullets. And just the first load I shot with it shoots really well. I mean, there's not really much sense in using that bullet in that rifle, but that rifle shoots well. This 308, it's a Ridgeline titanium action that I took sheep hunting, and that rifle's just stupid light. It's really short, and it shot pretty well. I mean, in freaking here somewhere in my Excel, I got an Excel folder for work from all the like rifle accuracy data, because working for Outdoor Life, I've tested a lot of rifles, and we have a pretty like strenuous accuracy, protocol for testing them, all 5-shot groups and a lot of them. And that thing, with factory ammo, it shoots okay. But I didn't have a chance to do any hand loading for it. And that's pretty much, if you're worth a shit, you can always get better results hand loading. Yeah. But out of like maybe like it looks like 30-ish groups I recorded, the average of the best 10 5-shot groups with factory ammo was like 1.14 inches, which is not bad.
When did it go up to 5-shot? I thought it was always 3. I think everybody the standard is 5 now, right? But like some of these,
and I don't know,
some of these barrels, though, like I don't feel like 5 shots does them any justice. They're so thin and light.
And I don't know when that happened. Like, and that's a good point, because some rifles, and I try to like mention it if I'm writing a story about, if it's like a different Weatherby, they're like Mark V Hunter. I just did a review on. It's in 270, and it's like super thin barrel, and it's just not going to shoot 5-shot groups as accurately as something with a heavier barrel. But you just got to like take everything into consideration. But generally, like 5-shot groups will give you like a better representation of like, I don't know, my boss or coworker always calls it like the noise of like how, like, if you have a flyer or something, it's like, he's like, don't discount flyers unless you pulled them, because a lot of times that's like in the overall pattern of what that rifle will shoot over time. But you could get super nerdy about all that.
Like like that Kimber mountain rifle. I can't remember if it's called the Mountain Ascent. Like that barrel on that gun, like 3 shots, and that thing has got to be smoking hot because that is the smallest barrel I've ever seen on them Kimbers.
Yeah, well, in that, and you mentioned that, I also just tested the Kimber Hunter Pro. Like whatever the model's like dissolve black or something. It's whatever fucking camo they have on the stock, but that rifle is only a little bit heavier than the Mountain Ascent, and you can get it for it's like less than $1,000. I think their MSRP is like 1,000 or 1,066 or some shit. But
that's pretty good for a Kimber.
No, I mean it's an 84M action. It has a detachable magazine, and it's light. It's like not very much heavier than the Mountain Ascent, and same thing with that. It's just pencil thin barrel that with good ammo, it'll keep the first 3 shots under a minute pretty reliably. But after that, man, that barrel goes running for the hills because it gets hot.
And that's what I mean. Like, because now it's like everything you watch, everyone's always like 5 shot. But I just feel like some of these guns can't do 5 shots. Like, there's just no way
they can't. And I think whatever you're doing, you just got to like keep in mind what the gun is and you know what it's intended to be for. Cause you get all these freaking know-it-alls that, my Tikka T3 is a 1/2-inch gun. It's like, well, what does that mean to you? Does it mean it shot 3 shot, like 1 or 2, or the occasional 3-shot groups at 1/2 inch, or, like 1/2-inch 5-shot group gun is incredibly accurate. I mean, I don't care like who it is, like even some of those heavy PRS rifles, like, some of them will shoot 1/2 inch, but not, you're not generally going to get like quarter inch 5-shot group guns. It just is not realistic as far as, reliably every time.
I think like if somebody says my gun's 1/2 minute, they should be able to lay down on command at 100 yards and do 1/2 minute, like anytime. That's a 1/2 minute gun. That, you know what I mean?
Yes. So. And there's some, I can't remember the name of the page that, some ballistics page that they make some very informative posts about that. And they're like, to really understand like what your gun is, like you have to shoot so many groups. And, like a gun that averages 1/2 minute is going to shoot a certain percentage of its groups, at 3/4 minute, and a certain percentage under half, to reach that average. But I mean, that's just not how people operate. It's like you yank it out of the box, go down, and you get one group that's under an inch, and it's a 3/4 inch gun all day long. People just are incessantly ridiculous about that shit. And more ridiculous than that is they will fucking die on that hill. Like they will fight you over that.
I think too. Yeah, I agree. I think too, man. Like you said, them Tikkas, like a Tikka T3 for the money. I think it's one of the better. I think it's like one of the better actions for the money. I think. I don't. They used to be a $600 or $800 gun. I don't know what it is now, but it was for the money. It's like the new Remington 700. Like when the Remington 700 back in the day was the industry standard. I think that Tikka T3 is like that action there is like the industry standard now, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, and I like that was another one I tested because I did all of this. Like I've been working at this all year, and I did like a batch of mid price like $600 to $1,200 rifles, and that was one of them because everyone says it'll like it's cooler than sliced bread, and they're good rifles for the money. But the thing just on average, it shot good, but it wasn't crazy.
No,
it was I think my top 10 groups averaged 1.33 inches. Looking at my handy dandy Excel sheet here.
But I think too, guys can make gun shoot. If you're worth your weight as a rifle guy, you can make a gun shoot, and with fairly minimal effort, to be honest. I think. But there's I think there's a high percentage of guys that just shoot box ammo. And I mean, they probably don't even knock the copper out of the fucking barrel once a year, maybe. And and shoot box ammo off the shelf and hope for the best, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no. And people play for how much just hate to say the average hunter, but like average seeming type folks play up their, how accurate their rifle is. Like they don't shoot the volume to even figure that out. And that's okay. Like you don't need to. Mm-hmm. Like you got any of these rifles, whether it always shoots right at 1 minute or up to 2 minutes for most of your hunting purposes. Like, I mean, honestly doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. I think too, one of the big things that nowadays, because long range hunting is so cool and it's so easy just to buy the equipment to do it. I think one of the things that guys need to be honest with themselves a little bit of what you're going to do. Are you shooting 300-400 yards max, or are you trying to shoot 1,000? Or like, what's your end goal? Like a lot of these guys are like, they want to just have all this factory setup, and then they want to go try and bang stuff at $1,000 or 1,200. And maybe they can, some people, I don't know, but I feel like, when you're shooting steel plates as opposed to a moose walking through a swamp, there's a big difference going on there,
Well, there's a whole higher standard you got to hold yourself to, including not just the shooting, but how the fuck you're going to get that moose out of where he's at, or if you're shooting a sheep up on top of some cliff, like is he going to pulverize himself, knock his horns off, fall into, or goats, especially because goats are even worse, are you going to even be able to recover them after you shoot them? But there's that reminded me, because there's guys that, you can buy all sorts of equipment. There was a guy, but people sometimes don't want to put the effort into like really maximizing even just hand loading. Like there was a guy I'd run into at the range that was bitching that his like $17,000 Banzner's 375 Ruger was only shooting. Like it was shooting like 1.5 inch groups or whatever with the ammo he bought for it, which isn't great. That it can be better, but if you're buying some Gucci rifle, like hunting rifle especially, sometimes your accuracy isn't the only thing you're paying for. And I'm like flipping through. I'm like, well, what other he was like, he sent these targets. The guy that made that thing, I think, it was Banzner's. And there was a couple groups that were like really tight. I was like, well, why aren't you shooting that load? Or why aren't you working up a load with those bullets? Like rifles aren't magic. You can't just because, even though generally a high dollar, like high quality rifle will shoot everything better than cheaper rifles, it doesn't mean that, you're going to get like super accuracy with anything you throw through there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's kind of a tangent. That's kind of a tangent too. I'm fucking all sort of fired up. So
yeah. And I get a little bit fired up with it too, because I don't know. I just see so many guys that just want to shoot long range, but whatever. I digress. So, so you guys seen some Rams, but nothing. Just the one.
Nothing special, man.
Yeah, nothing. That one picture you sent me there, that's the Ram you'd went in for? Yeah. So he has to be in there. He has to be in there somewhere still, probably, hey?
Oh, I'm sure he is, yeah. Well, no. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm tracking with you now, that giant Ram. I think someone killed him out of the unit.
Oh, really? Did you see any pictures of him?
Yeah, I'll send you pictures of him. Afterwards. It could be a totally different Ram. Like I didn't, it's kind of unspoken code. I didn't even ask the guy where, general area, but it looks like the same Ram.
Yeah.
And it was pretty incredible. So that was kind of a disappointment, but life's full of disappointment sometimes.
Yeah. So, and my season was kind of like the same. We and Tyler went up and did some goat hunting, and we murked a couple goats. And
your picture looks like a stomper Billy.
Yeah, he was 8 years old and right at 10 inch. So
nice.
Yeah, he's a nice goat. I mean, kind of shithouse luck, right? Like I knew it was when we had glassed them from the bottom, we knew it was a billy, but I wasn't like, I wasn't dead set on shooting a book goat or anything, but it's just kind of how that worked out. We actually got super lucky on that because, like I said to Tyler, like when we're at the bottom, there was an Avi shoot to the right, and I'm like, the wind is kind of carrying through this valley this way. I'm like, if we're gonna get downwind of these things, we got to go up this Avi shoot. But it was kind of like pretty treacherous going. It didn't look very fun. So we stayed kind of upwind, and then we thought, well, we'll just kind of stay a little bit below them. So they shouldn't wind us, right? Mm-hmm. But we can go up on the kind of the upwind side of them, but we'll just hang out, 100 yards below. Well, shit, by the time we had crested the hill, when I got up there, the wind was actually just all over the place. So they had actually winded us at probably about 80 yards.
Oh, man.
So if they would have just boiled them two goats, actually it was just my goat because Tyler's goat was kind of bedded in this other spot. But if they would have just boiled out over the top and over the backside, like they'd have been gone. We'd have never got anything. But for whatever reason, the goat I shot, because when we had seen him in the bottom, he was bedded in this shady like avalanche chute, real steep. And he boiled out of there, but he went to our left, man, into this other like canyon or this other like to the left of us, I guess, of this other draw. And he just stopped and was looking downhill, like below me. And I was already on the bipod because I was like lined up on this avalanche chute. So I just clicked him. He was like 250 and I just rolled over with the gun and started blasting. But
nice.
So it worked. I got shithouse lucky, to truth be told, but
man, I'll take it though. I've done shit like that, sneaking up on sheep where the wind's just swirling, doing something weird, and they wind you, and then like you make a long ass stalk, and they're not there anymore.
So then we're walking to it, and I'm like 10 yards from it. Like I'm just about to put my hands on it, and I hear Tyler go. He's like whistling at me, and I look back. He's down on his bipod, and he's like, "There's this like freaking little eagle's nest, man. Like it's just this little grassy knob, but it's tucked back in the cliffs, so you can't really see it." And this goat's standing there, and he's looking down at us. And man, Tyler's got that 30 Nosler, and he's shooting them hammer bullets out of that thing.
Yeah,
them fucking hammer bullets, man. I tell you what, them fucking things do some serious damage. Like they fuck shit up. And but anyway, he's down on the bipod and he thumps that thing in the chest, man. And it's such a hard up angle that it hits it in the chest and it blows out his back, like out the top of his back. And just
lights out. Bedtime.
It got back. It did get back up, so he thumped it again. But so that was pretty cool that we had double headered, and so we were first thing through my mind is I'm like, fuck, we got to pack 2 goats out of here now.
Yeah. Oh man.
But no, it was good. And then like we ran out of water, and it was just a painful existence after that. But it was fun, and I'd do it again. I think only thing I'd change is I'd try and get me some big water bladders, like some 10 or 12 liter bladders or something to go up. Because there was no water in that country, man. It was brutal.
Yeah, that's no good, man. And I've sheep hunted a lot in country where, fortunately, this year, like we were getting into just potholes of water like we had no shortage of water. But I'm pretty used to hunting in dry country, and it's a bitch, man. I bring enough water bladders to carry 10 liters, plus my 2, or I usually bring like 3 Gatorade bottles. Because, I mean, whatever, Nalgene's are nice, but man, Gatorade bottles are fucking cheap and they're tough.
They work the same, yeah.
So I bring them and 10 liters, so I can basically, I'm fat, so I need more water. So it takes me, that'll last me 2 to 2.5 days. Yeah. And the bladders don't weigh that much, and you can freaking pack them anywhere. But anytime that like water future is uncertain, I load up and I've carried a lot of extra water unnecessarily just because I'm just do not want to run out.
Yeah. and we just couldn't find water anywhere. It's like we were pretty much back to the truck before we'd found water. And I'd never been so thirsty in my life. I was like, I could feel like stomach acid in my throat. Like that's how the level of dry it was. It was terrible. It was a terrible existence. Like when we found that creek, I just dove in it head first. I just dropped my bag. And yeah, so that was a fun hunt, man. That was good. And then after that,
well, I was going to ask you, those hammer bullets, I need to try. They're like a monolithic copper hollow point, aren't they?
Yeah. So they kind of fold open from what I watched videos on them, and like what I helped Tyler with his like butcher his goat on the mountain, and I could see the damage they do. Like they fuck shit up bad. Like definitely if you're eating moose for the winter, I wouldn't put it on his hind quarter for the first shot. There's not going to be nothing left. But anyway, yeah. So just the main shank kind of, but the pedals kind of break off, man. So like the bullet goes in and it's almost like a fucking shotgun. Like, so once the bullet goes inside, all them little pedals just kind of like fucking shotgun the inside of whatever the hell you're shooting at. So like, so still got your main shank driving through. Yep. But all them pedals break off. It's pretty cool, actually.
So those things sound a lot like they're like Lehigh Defense, like controlled chaos bullets. They're like it sounds like the same thing. They got a solid, which in the past they made some brass, but like brass or copper, like solid shank with like a hollow point bullet that's just an empty cavity with like thin jacket on the front. Mm-hmm. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. From what I know, I don't shoot them, but from what I've researched on them, and I watched one video where the guy was shooting them into that ballistics gel. And then he would literally melt the gel down and then strain it so he could get all the petals out of it. And it's amazing, like how many actual copper pellets there is, and like, or call like pellet, not pellets, but petals. And yeah, so I don't know. That's a pretty cool bullet, and that's the first time I've ever seen it work. And I was impressed, but there's a lot of good bullet technology out there nowadays, So, and I know like too with hammer, I don't know like bullet manufacturing process for most places, but I think that hammer, man, like turns them on a lathe. Like they manufacture them one by one. Yeah. I'm pretty sure. So,
yeah, I think that's what I've heard too. So I just need to shoot more shit because there's so much cool stuff to try.
A guy needs to go to Texas and shoot hogs. Bring down your 338. Yeah.
Do that or go to Africa.
That'd be fun.
And just waylay stuff. But I want to get some monolithic set of new bullets for my 375 Ruger, which I don't really need to. I've got shitloads of the 300 grain Hornady DGXs is what I've shot for years. And I've shot them end to end through a brown bear.
What was that? DGX?
Yeah. The Hornady DGX, like dangerous game expanding.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They're kind of like almost a flat, not quite flat point lead nose, just hammer bullet, not quote unquote, not the company hammer bullet, but they hit shit hard. that black bear I shot at 12 feet, like sent him end over end basically. But this fall I did kind of for shits and grins and kind of to like just see what was what. I did like a brush deflection test for work. I wrote the story up on it and everything. And, like old Jack O'Connor did one, and it was kind of like a little incomplete, and he was just using the bullets they had at the time. And aside from like, you shouldn't be shooting shit through brush. I found like that, but copper, like monolithic copper bullets, like Hornady CX or GMX and the Barnes stuff deflected much less than like those 300 grain lead nose bullets for my 375. Man, they just sent them things keyhole in it. And it was in just like river bar brush that you'd see a moose in, and anything just freaking sends those things spinning. And same thing with my 338 Win Mag. I loaded some 225 grain Hornady GMXs And the load that I killed that grizzly bear with this spring was like a 250 grain, just lead core interlock, I think was what that shit was. But man, that lead core bullets, they would just keyhole like a motherfucker. Any kind of brush impact.
So the best performing was the mono metals,
the coppers.
Coppers. Yeah. That's interesting stuff. Yeah, that's good to know.
And so I'm like, yeah, because that 338 and that 375, those are what I mainly use for, bear bait, my bear bait and backup guns or going into check baits and shit. I just want something that's going to level anything if I happen to step on it. And that grizzly bear, like the first shot was clear, and then I kind of had to wait. And, you're all in brush and stuff. You never know when you're going to hit anything. So I think I'm going to switch over to just copper bullets for those guns. And actually, same thing with a 4570. The 4570 did better than any other gun. I kind of expected it to, and brushed resisting deflection. But by far the best performing bullets were these. It was the Lehigh Defense, like their extreme defense bullet, but it was in like Black Hills Honey Badger ammo. And they're just it's a copper solid, a machined copper solid that it looks like a Phillips head screwdriver. Like it's got these flutes cut into the front of it. So it's really good at penetrating barriers, but those flutes make a pretty nasty wound cavity too. And like we've killed a couple bears with those, and it jacks them up pretty bad. So anyway,
that's interesting stuff. Yeah. Cause you never really know when you're shooting through brush. Like sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah, no. Yeah. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the biggest lesson is you shouldn't be shooting through brush if you don't have to, but, follow up shots. If it's for a rifle that I'm going to be using in the bush, it's not going to hurt to have something that does better.
So on your sheep gun, what's your zero? Like, what do you zero your yardage at?
I usually zero it for 200 and then dial up if it's farther than that.
Yeah, like see, fucking Tyler, like on the Godon, he has 100-yard zero with that 30 nozzler. I'm pretty sure he said that. So I'm just not 200-yard zero guy, because you go from 50 yards pretty much to like 300. Just put it, if even at 300, just put it on the top of the spine, and you're going to drop it in there.
And that's like with like normal, something like a 30 nozzler, you probably have a 250-yard zero and still be like dead nuts, out to, from 0 to 300 yards or something, or 350 yards.
I feel like a 200-yard zero is the working man's. That's the working man's zero right there. Because forever, and since I was a kid, man, like when I was brought up, my dad, everybody zeroed everything at 100. And that was just how it was. Everybody zeroed at 100. But fuck, nowadays, I don't see no point in not zeroing at 200. Like zero at 200 and just hold fur to 300, and you're going to connect, And that's for quick shooting, too, because sometimes things are happening really fast, and you might not even have time to range, and you just got to kind of, get one out there. But
or you hit something, or you hit something and they're running away, and like you said, but for most, I mean, any kind of 30-06 270 type of cartridge, if you're zeroed for 200, you're just going to have to hold a little bit high at 300. That's it. Even a 308, man. Which, if there's anything that makes me appreciate the 6.5 Creedmoor, it's going back to shooting a 308, because fuck, that thing drops out of the sky. But you have a 200-yard zero, and then you're like, it's 6 inches or so low at 300. It's not that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What caliber did you say you brought sheep hunting? I don't know. Did you say that? I can't remember.
It was a 308.
Oh, it was a 308. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which that's like normal. I mean, I've shot some with a 6.5. I've shot some with a 6.5 Creedmoor. Shot one with that 6.5 RPM is a pretty cool cartridge. That's got a little more horsepower, obviously. But I don't know, all kinds of stuff. 25-06 would probably have to be like if I had to just pick my nostalgic favorite sheep cartridge, I killed as many of them with a 25-06 as anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think I knew an old sheep guy too that used 25-06. He shot everything with that fucking gun.
Dude, I know. Well, my uncle has a buddy that's, I don't know how many brown bears he's killed with a 25-06, but he's just like, you shoot them in the lungs, they die.
That's just it too. And lots of guys are always talking about hitting power, and it's, and 30 calibers kind of win the world. But if you're putting the bullet where it's got to go and you're using a proper bullet, and it's going to die. Like animals aren't made of steel. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of guys, I think sometimes overthink the amount of hitting power, even for a moose. Like even the moose bull I shot this year, he was a big body bull. And so that's why I put what caliber I was using in when I posted it, because it's going to ruffle guys' feathers. Because like some guys say you shouldn't be using a 270 to shoot moose, and I've fucking shot some bulls. I've shot quite a few bulls with that rifle.
So many. I took a 270 moose hunting this year. I got no fucking qualms about doing that. Like no issue whatsoever. I mean, I'd shoot a bull with people, you get hate for it, but I'd shoot a bull with a 6.5 Creedmoor at reasonable range with a good bullet. They're good. Like it's not, I don't know. It seems like some people feel like the only acceptable thing is when an animal drops like in their tracks. And they could do that with any cartridge, and there's no guarantees that shooting something big is going to do that. I mean, I think sometimes people are just lazy. Like it's not that hard. Most people complain about no blood trails, and with also that could be with archery or some bullets. It's like, well, if you're not blowing a gigantic hole in something, you're probably not going to get a crazy good blood trail. But like,
yeah.
Is it that hard to find stuff if you shoot them through both lungs and they're dead quickly?
But I feel like too, guys like you or me or guys like stickbow guys or archers, like we've shot a pile of game with bows and arrows, and you learn the anatomy and you learn how to read hits and you learn what blood looks like. And you can like I shot a bull moose one time way back in the day, man. And, I think it was like 40 yards with the bow, and I was filming it and he only went like 60 yards and tipped over. Like I've had bulls that have lived longer with rifle shots. So like when guys tell me, maybe 270 is too small for moose, I'm like, man, you haven't killed enough shit, because it's plenty enough,
Well, and how many people, like years ago, I caught all kinds of shit because I wrote like in any of these, like for work, any of these like stories I do that are like, oh, you like my picks for best cartridges for whatever animal, like it's like I try to clearly state like, look, this is just my picks, you're going to have something different. But I caught a bunch of shit like moose cartridges, and it was kind of dumb because I was just basing it off of Alaska really, but I didn't include the 303. And caught a world of shit for that, man. But like all sorts, like how many moose been killed up here with a 243 or 30-30, man? Like use good bullets and shoot them at reasonable ranges and like shoot it through both lungs. They're not going to live.
I knew an old boy. He lives about 45 minutes from me here. I bet he shot 15 or 20 bull moose with a 243 over the years. And I was in on a few hunts with him and watched him, and he was stomping moose. He'd thump a moose with that little 243. And I think it was just 100 grain bullet, but it was a good, just, old kind of interlock style cup and core. Just put it right behind the shoulder and shoot him in the heart, shoot him in the lungs. They don't go very far and they tip over dead. So
no, well, that old, that Alaska's Wolfman book that wrote, that old timer Frank Glazer. He claimed that the 220 Swift killed hoofed game faster than any other like rifle. He'd shot all kinds of shit. He was like, you shoot, and they were shooting shitty like 50 grain, basically varmint bullets back in the time. He's like, you shoot them in the lungs, they are toast. So one of these days I'm going to like load a hot loaded 22 250 or get a 220 Swift, and then you load like a 50 grain Barnes in there, like. And shoot a moose with, like, you can't be stupid. You got to take take good shots. But man, that's hunting.
Is there caliber restrictions up there for you guys, or on?
You just can't use rim fires.
Because see here,
there's reasonable. Like I could see it be some level of caliber restriction is reasonable. Like I don't think you should go shooting freaking caribou with a 17 Hornet, or whatever.
So like I think up here, like what's a 243? Is that .244, like 24 cal?
It's 24. I don't know if I think it is 244, not .243.
So anyway, in Alberta,
6 millimeter, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, in Alberta, it's the minimum is 243 for like that's hooved game. And Fish and Game did a survey here a few years ago, and they had asked because they want to get hunter recruitment numbers up, and like could a 223 be a good idea for kids to deer hunt with? And I fucking sent an email back, said, oh, of course, shoot, of course it'd be more than enough, or even a 22-250. I think with a proper bullet, I think that'd be more than enough shooting deer, but.
Oh yeah,
and
like
so I don't know what
you're talking 4,000 feet per second.
Yeah, like I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So, but up here, so we do have restrictions as of now. Like my kids, I bought them a youth, just one of them, whatever savage fucking youth with the shorter stocks, and that's what I take my kids with, and they shoot that. But I wish I could drop them. Like even that new caliber that came out there, I think it's almost fully SAMI approved now. It's that 22 Creedmoor. That fucking thing is like, that thing is a fucking rocket ship. And I mean, I think some guys in the States are using it already wherever it's legal, but I think that's
there's lots of guys shoot whitetails with 223s, even, and 22 250 is a hell of a lot more gun than a 223 too, and like you said, use something like a Barnes that's not going to come apart. Any bullet that's not going to come apart is going to destroy shit on a deer, or or even a moose if you were like super careful about where you were shooting them.
That's interesting that you guys can just shoot moose up there with anything but rimfire. I thought they would for sure have a restriction on.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe like a little bit more restrictive thing would be a good thing. There was a proposal like to make it to where you couldn't hunt with non-expanding bullets, which I like to a point, like I get what the guy was trying to, but the way it was worded, it was kind of jacked up. But I mean, people shoot caribou with 223s, and some people aren't super responsible about it. Like, you gotta be at a reasonable distance and shoot a good bullet and shoot them well, but they work fine.
Because I think Africa's got a minimum of a 375, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when I was in Africa, and it may depend on where you're at and what game, like dangerous game, like certain game, I'm sure has restrictions. When I was over there, I shot everything with a 308. And I mean, it's like shot an ostrich like 850 yards with a 308.
Did you get to eat any of that fucker or what? The ostrich?
Oh yeah, we got to eat a bunch of stuff. I don't know if it was that one, but I mean, we got, which is that's what sucks is you can't legally even like take the meat back out of the country. But
what did ostrich taste like? Like big chicken or what?
I don't know. It was like kind of more like steak, man. It was well, you could have a fry big old drumsticks in like a 55-gallon drum, I guess.
Are they, so how heavy was it like when you walked up to it? Like how big a bird is it for?
It's a pretty damn big bird, man. It was I don't know what, they stand over 6 feet tall. It was goofy, man. There's just some weird, cool stuff over there. I seen fun. Like shooting baboons is fun.
I seen a video the other day here in Alberta, like a couple hours south of me. There was some guys chasing some ostriches down the street, and they were grabbing them. It was pretty funny watching.
Oh, that is funny, man.
So where do you hold on? Where did you put it? Where did you put it on ostrich? Just center of the body, or what?
Right in the middle. Yep. Right in the middle. They don't have any breast meat to ruin, so because they don't fly, so they don't have breast meat. But yeah, you just keep thumping them right in the middle till they they fall down, which I actually shot 2. The one I shot that far was one that a German guy in our, like, that was shared, it was 2-on-1. So it was like 2 hunters to 1 guide. And this guy, I had already shot I shot 5 animals that morning, and I was like, I gotta cut myself off. This is like day 1. And so, but this guy, he shot this ostrich and he hit it in the foot somehow, like 300 yards.
That's he's probably a box ammo guy.
Yeah. And this thing just takes off running, and he ran out of ammo, and the guide was like, and I'd left my rifle in the truck on purpose because I was done for the day. Yeah. And the guide's like, PH is like, go grab your rifle and shoot that thing. And so I did. And it was a long fucking ways away by the time I got my rifle back and laid down. But just like, I don't know, it was lucky. I just dialed it up and held like 3 feet into the mirage and touched it off, and the thing hit the ground. And I'm like, that still counts as yours.
How far of a shot was it?
It was because we were doing everything in meters.
I'm even Canadian and I don't know meters.
I know it wasn't confusing just because it's like, all right, our adjustments are in mils per meter, everything was in meters. So it worked out, but it was, I think it was like 865 yards.
Oh, okay.
It was like 780 or 790 meters.
Oh yeah. That's a poke though.
It was like, and earlier that day at lunch from like the balcony of our dining hall, we were eating, that's all that camp's also on a bluff. I had shot 3 baboons like at lunch. And they started off with like 250. Then they gradually made themselves ways off. And then I shot a big male at like, he was 814 yards. So it was like the 2 luckiest shots I've ever made on animals and in the same day. And then, I don't know where I'm going with this, but after I shot that ostrich, the guide's like, all right, shoot that one that's 500 yards away. And I must've shot that thing 4 times, just like thunk, and it would fall down. They'd get back up and shoot him again.
Cause a baboon isn't very big, eh? It'd just be like a midget or something, probably same size.
No. Well, I don't know about that, but they're not very big. And so I mean, I still can't believe I hit that thing.
800 on a midget sized target is pretty good.
Well, I hit him right through, like, I don't know how I hit him right through the chest too, but like we just went over there and he was dead with a bullet hole right through his chest. So
what caliber was that?
I was feeling just a 308.
Oh, 308. Fuck, eh?
Yeah. Well, and where I was going with all this originally was the PH I was hunting with. He said his favorite cartridge to hunt with, up to, like, he said he'll even shoot kudu with them, is just a 22-250.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's unreal. I would never expect them guys to say that, but that's pretty cool, actually.
And just like anywhere, I think it's when, like, it's different when they're hunting with idiots from other countries as opposed to doing their own thing,
Yeah, some guy from Germany shooting stuff in the foot.
Yeah, and I mean, they see, just like any like international outfitting business, they see all different colors of shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, so how did that work? So then you went over and they just charge you per animal kind of thing, and then you just kind of paid
that one, yeah. Well, that one was actually a media hunt.
Okay.
Which was like the second one. The first, my only trip to Alberta was like the first media hunt I ever got to go on, which is where, like, if companies are coming out with something new, it gives writers something to write about. They'll bring writers on these trips and have them use this gear to familiarize themselves with it and see how it works. And sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't. But
you need to tell them you need a media hunt for a stone sheep in BC.
That ain't no fucking lie there, man. I'm not there yet. But no, so that's what it was. But that's how it would be, is you would like book for they'd booked us for like, we could kill technically 5 animals plus baboons were free. And then by the end of the first day, I'd killed 3 baboons and almost all my animals. But in looking at their price list, I was like, yeah, like they had different cull animals you could shoot for super cheap. Like a cow wildebeest was like a couple $100. And they got horns just like the bulls do. And I mean, I got a Impala ram that had like 4 inches of one of his horns busted off for like $200. You know, it's some guys get all turned off when you're talking about stuff like in monetary terms like that. But I'm like, man, I'm like flipping through. I was like, what else can I afford to shoot while I'm here? I'm poor, like I'm broke, but
that's the same.
I can
same as me.
I'm like,
I'd be in the bargain cave looking for animals too.
Yeah, well, exactly. But there's Impala with perfect horns running around all over the place. It's really a little bit more of a challenge if you choose to shoot find one with a broken horn. But no, it was just all good, clean fun, man. I would do it again. And it's, fun for experience. It's cheaper than almost any North American hunt.
Man. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like, what's an Alaskan moose going for up there? It's got to be 20 grand. Eh?
Geez, probably 20 grand for, a few years ago, it was like 14 to 16, for good moose hunts. But it's probably, 16 to 20 grand, I would imagine.
I know, like Alberta.
And that's not just outfitters' pocket and stuff, but everything's got more expensive. It's fucking tough. Even just doing your own, booking your own charter flights out to go do a fly out hunt for moose, if you can get the flights booked, is not cheap. It's out a little rich for my blood. I can buy a new boat for that.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, I know. It's like, I think Alberta was like, for moose, like a few years ago, it was like 8 grand. And I think it's went up to maybe 11, 12 and maybe a little higher. I don't really pay too much attention, but I don't know. That's why I know some guys do come to like Alberta and stuff to hunt moose or BC, because I think it is a little bit cheaper than Alaska. And if you're an American, you're like, they're getting $1 to 75 of our cents, right? So like their dollars are going farther. So if they buy an $8,000 moose in Alberta, it's like it's probably going to cost them $6 grand, $6,500 kind of thing here, out of their own pocket.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I need to come back and hunt whitetails. That's what I forget. I killed a lot of moose, but man, that I like got the whitetail bug a little bit. Yeah,
I get you out. You should come down one year with your stick bow and we'll frickin' chase some deer around.
That'd be fun, man. May not shoot anything, but I'll try.
Yeah,
fling some arrows around in the dirt.
It's fun. Just the wintertime, it's fun, like hunting them in November here. But like November here was, we hit like minus 30 C. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I'd have to Google that. But
I think minus 20 is where they cross over, where they're the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it's fucking cold. 30 below is cold.
So minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is fucking cold. It fucking sucks because you're trying to sit through that shit and you're just freezing to death, right? It's tough. It's tough hunt. But yeah, no, that'd be good. Yeah, so then I did that goat. We did that goat hunt and I came home and then just did some moose hunting around home and called in some bulls and fucked around, but just couldn't get it done with the bow. I ended up cleaning that tag up with a rifle and then I pulled a muley tag for Southern Alberta. I went down and did that, which was cold as fuck as well, which was kind of. Yeah,
I was listening to you guys' last like locals only episode. That was pretty good shit.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, I pretty much put the bow away for the year.
Yeah. It just comes a point to you're like, fuck it. I got too many tags to fill and just not enough time, so.
Oh yeah,
but it worked. Yeah, it worked out. It worked out good. Ended up in the season, so did that, and then just came back up, finished up whitetail hunting in November here, and it was good good year. And then I'm freaking tired of cutting meat. I'm telling you. So I'm ready to.
Oh, I wish I had that problem. We did that. Well, I shot that caribou, and then anytime I hung my caribou for a week and then cut it up on the saw and my butcher saw, but it's not the same as doing a moose on there. And I brought the meat from that doe home, which is about like enough to fill a fucking lunchbox.
It's not very much. It's not very much off a whitetail. No. Especially Kentucky. No, I can imagine they're probably small. Like our whitetails up here are pretty hardy. They're pretty big.
That buck I killed in Alberta was heavy.
Yeah.
She was like doe was about 100 pounds or so. I don't know. No matter how light they are, they're a pain. They like remind you how out of shape you are trying to drag those fucking things. But
you're going back to Kentucky or what?
Yeah. No, I still got a license and everything, and it was so slow. And I know the guy I hunted with, and so I'm taking the old smoke wagon down there for muzzleloader season, and should do good. I'm looking forward to it. It'll definitely be. It's not going to be freaking 80 degrees again like it was.
I don't really.
Like I said, I don't want to. I had a good time, but it was not like the most productive time frame of hunting.
I don't really pay a whole bunch of attention to American whitetail hunting, but I kind of always like whenever I see big deer float to the internet. In Missouri, man, that's kind of a sleeper state. Nobody talks about Missouri, and I see some fucking piss cutters coming out of Missouri, and it's like, everyone's always like Illinois, Iowa, fucking Kansas, or whatever. Even Kentucky, I think there's some deer coming there, but fucking Missouri, man, I think it holds down some pretty good deer in Missouri. But
yeah, maybe if you're hunting on the Bomar farm. I don't know.
No, fucking no. Yeah. But no, I don't pay a bunch of attention to it, but I'm just up here wrestling wolves around trying to kill a whitetail. That's about it.
Shit, yeah. I was looking at this picture. Guy I know killed one. Tennessee, I hear, has some pretty big deer too, but it just seems like you boys in Alberta got some nice fucking deer.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, we do, and if we can keep them alive, that's the hardest part. And it's more like we got lions and fucking wolves coming out our ass. Like this year, man, I was calling moose along the river, and the wolves were just fucking ripping their head off just across the river, eh? And my buddy did have a rifle with us, but I was like, man, I hope they swim, because they will. The fuckers will swim across to hunt, especially if they hear bulls grunting like that.
Yeah.
But never did. But so this year might be a good year for wolves. I'm hoping to hopefully get a poke. I almost got a stab at one here the other day, a nice blue roan, but he ducked in the bush. I just couldn't get on him fast enough, But
yeah, that's one thing. It seemed like, at least around where I was hunting in Alberta, like you guys got the infrastructure, like the roads and stuff, to be able to cover more country. And like, I don't know if those wolves down there roam like have as big a territories as they do up here. Cause I haven't been trapping much at all really in the past few years, but it just seemed like, man, in some areas they have more wolves in there frequently, but man, it's like a pack would come through like once every 8 weeks, if you're lucky, like every 6 to 8 weeks, you'd see them. And I didn't have a real big line or anything, but it just seemed like everywhere we went down there was wolf tracks.
Oh yeah, it's just that's a big debate up here right now, because it's kind of like there's this line drawn in the sand between industry and, because right now Alberta has caribou, woodland caribou. I think they're woodland, and they're just fucking getting just decimated by the wolves. Like they're just fucking getting murdered. And so the Alberta government, the last handful of years, it's been quiet. Not many people talking about it, but they had a poisoning program going, and I knew about it because
that's nice.
I know a lot of guys kind of in and around a lot of things hunting, and so I had my feelers were out, and I'd been hearing about it. And I've been hearing numbers of what they've been killing, and it was. But the thing with poison that I kind of don't really agree with it is that poison doesn't discriminate, man. It fucking kills fucking everything, man. And
yeah, that's the downside about it.
And, part of me is like, because I'm an oil and gas guy, right? So like I'm pro industry, like that's my living, right? And we make a lot of roads, man. Like we punch fucking roads everywhere and we make a lot of pipelines, and that fucking kills caribou. And so like part of me is like, the fucking caribou are getting killed and they're too fucking stupid to survive. And then the other part of me is like, I'm pro oil and gas, but I'm not pro poisoning wolves. I don't want to poison wolves. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's better ways to do it. But the way the Alberta government was kind of sneaking around and doing it, and there was actually just a documentary came out. Somebody sent it to me the other day, and I only watched about 5 minutes of it, and I couldn't fucking watch anymore. But it was the same. It was about that. It was about poisoning them, and they did kill a lot of wolves. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if the caribou are going to make it or not. Like, I just don't think you can kill enough wolves. Like how long can you just keep poisoning shit? You're not going to ever get ahead of a wolf pack, right? Like they're just going to keep coming. And the more you kill, like the more wolves you take out of an area, the more that bitch is going to have pups. Like instead of having a couple in a litter, man, that bitch is going to have 6 or 8. It's just how it works.
Well, and if you, depending on which ones you're knocking, if you break up packs, like then guys airplaning them, you break up these packs. Well, if you got one pack, typically, at least from what I understand, I'm an armchair biologist, but, there's one breeding female, and then, you break up packs. If there's any mature females or what, you're just creating more even like the 40-mile country, it was 7 or 8 years in a row that they airplaned the shit out of them. And I mean, they were killing, like I was skinning for a fur buyer at the time. I'd see like lots of some of these like flat skins come through, they're killing. And that's just the ones the state was doing. They were licensing some private guys to do it. And, hundreds of wolves a year. And after 7 years, there were still just as many as when they started. I think they figured, but it did make a difference for the caribou, like, because the timing that they would do it in the spring when they were, just before calving. But they, I don't know. I mean, it seems like I've heard that you got to kill like 70 to 80% of like a localized wolf population for several years in a row to have any effect on them. Back in the day here, they did, which, and I like earlier, I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. So, I mean, there's definitely like a bad side to poison and shit too. And ultimately it's probably not the best way to go.
Back in the day, like back in the day, my granddad, like I'm a 3rd generation wolf guy, right? So my granddad my grandpa, like I'm from a pretty old family. So he died in like the 60s, right? I never did get to meet him.
Yeah.
But my dad would tell me stories about in the 30s, how my grandpa and those guys, they would go freeze a moose in a lake. Like they'd chop a hole, put a moose leg in, like awful. And they would poison that. And then they'd just go around the edge of the lake and pick up all the dead wolves. And that's how back in the day they were even doing it. Yeah. But like now I just feel like too, if they did it at the right time in Alberta, like we do have a lot of timber, but so does Alaska, right? Like, if you did some aerial work on wolves, I think it's a little bit more ethical than fucking poison and everything. I don't know. Yeah.
No. Or even like depending on, you think about, because how much money, like I talked about this with guys up here, how much money the state spent per hour helicopter whacking all these wolves. I mean, I'm sure it's fun as shit to get to do, but how much money they spend on that versus, and it seems like there's always some like governmental hangups, especially in Alaska, I think, on, the term bounty.
Yeah.
But, like if they, people get their panties in a ruffle over that. But man, like if rather than just helicoptering wolves, if the state told guys, we'll pay you $1,000 a wolf you catch, plus you get to keep the hide and sell it, do whatever you want with it. Yeah. There would be a little bit, especially in rural areas, it's like, yeah, there would be a little bit more effort to get after them and just pound the shit out of them. And it would still probably be cheaper than running a helicopter to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what it comes down in Alberta. It's like industry's making roads, kind of, and logging. So I'm counting logging too, and they're taking away all the timber, and so then the caribou aren't surviving, and the wolves are just cleaning them up, and it's just like it's pretty messy right now, to be honest. And I don't know what the answer is, but I just know that poison and everything isn't really that good.
No,
as an armchair biologist.
Yeah. No. Well, Nate, I mean, up here, like in the 50s, especially in the early 50s, I think it was, the feds were back when the feds were kind of on our side up here, sort of, they were poisoning the shit out of everything. Well, not everything, but I think it had a lot of downstream effect, but it sure nailed back the wolves.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was ways it was done wrong and ways, that it was done specifically, I think, you just throw 1080, they would have fat balls that they would freeze 1080 into and just pitch it out of the window of airplanes. And then, I mean, you're probably killing more fox and wolverines and stuff than you are what you're really after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So
don't confuse that with me. Don't confuse that with me feeling bad for wolves that die of poisoning.
No, and I'm not a real big fan of wolves. So just to clarify, I shoot every goddamn wolf. I shoot every wolf I can. So don't get her twisted. But it's I just seen that come up the other day, and I've been working up too. I've been working on jobs way in northern Alberta, and seen caribou wandering around. So they're still there. It's just whether or not they're going to survive. And we got there's a whole bunch of factors too. We got grizzlies coming out our freaking ass. We can't hunt those. And and we got black bears around every damn corner. So it's pretty predator rich around this country these days.
I'll say, man, it was freaking, wolf tracks everywhere, coyotes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently you guys got quite a few cats too. So,
fucking lions. Yeah. Lots of everything. Lions are really hard on deer. If you have a male lion move into a spot, if it's cold, right now here in Alberta, it's minus 30, minus 37 this morning. And when the meat freezes on them with them lions, they can't eat frozen meat really that good. They got to lay there and lick it to soften it up. They'll be killing every couple. They'll be killing every couple days just to keep fresh meat, and they're real good at killing deer. I'll tell you, they'll clean an area out real quick. And I've been on some lion hunts and stuff before and stuff. I like watching them things die too. So. But even a lion hunts, man, are getting expensive. I think a lion hunt right now is $10,000 or fucking something to go without houndsman Alberta.
Jeez, can you guys snare wolves there still?
Yeah, for now, but I feel like that's going to come to an end in the next handful of years as well. The way that everyone's pushing back, but yeah, we can
because I would be I would think you'd catch lions occasionally in snares too.
They do. Anyway. Yeah. I got buddies. It's kind of taboo, right? Nobody ever wants to talk about non-target catches, but it fucking happens, right? I snared and trapped my whole fucking life. I've never caught a lion, but I know guys that have, right? And it just happens, but it doesn't hurt my feelings any.
No, I wouldn't feel bad. I wouldn't feel bad about that. I feel bad about catching moose, but I mean, most guys are doing it right up here anyway. There's a few different ways you can build your snares to where they'll just break away if you catch moose. Yeah.
So that's what I always did. I run them S-hook breakaways. I can't remember the pound rating. I think on wolf, I would run 550 or 700 pound. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And I had a moose one time.
A wolf can only,
step in a snare and it broke. It did what it's supposed to do. It fucking, that S hook opened up and broke away. So they do work. I know that.
Because they say a wolf can pull up to 800 pounds. Mm-hmm. If your snare's tied against something which, anybody that's ever set a snare before, you want to set them, like hang them as high as you can on shit that'll flex, like little saplings or whatever, and that they can wrap stuff around so they can't like get a good, so they're not just like running and hitting the end of the cable. But moose, it's those S hooks, or some guys on their Thompson locks will just like hacksaw through a part of their Thompson lock to where, in theory, if you catch a moose, they're way stronger and those will rip that thing apart and then be on their way. But
so kind of what I did too, because I was always snaring around deer and shit. So I would put buy them little they're just little not little washers, but they're round aluminum. They're 4 snares, but I would put them on so my loop couldn't close.
Oh, like, on a deer's leg.
Yeah. So like if you had a snare, and this is one of the ways I avoided non-target on stuff like that, was I would put these little stops on. So if a deer did step in it or stuck his nose in it or something, it only closes so far, then it just falls off, right? Because it can't close any further.
It'll lock down tight enough to choke a wolf or coyote or whatever, but not lock around their leg. Yeah, no, I see the same. Yeah, they promote like a lot of the same things up here.
Marty Seneker, he's a Alberta coyote snare fucking legend in this country. The guy is snared.
Oh, I've heard about him. Yeah.
So he has. We're bringing up some memories here now. I haven't trapped in a few years, but back in the day, he had Seneca Lightning. No. Anyway, I can't remember. It's like little springs that go on the snare. I wanted to say lightning locks, but I don't want to say lightning locks, but I think them are his little cam locks. I can't remember what they're called. It passes
the
my
stingers,
mind.
Is it?
Yeah, maybe
Seneca
stingers. That's
stinger?
right. Yeah. But anyway, them too, that just gives that little bit of extra pop too when you catch a wolf. So he'll stop as soon as he hits the end of that cable, boom, that spring pops open, and then it just holds really good tension. So it dispatches quick that way,
Yeah, because that's exactly. I think those are called the stinger springs. It just like you said, it just keeps your lock from like having any wiggle at all.
Mm-hmm. What kind of cable?
What kind of cables?
What size of cable were you running?
I think 330 seconds is what I had some stuff that was like 1/8 inch cable, but that's really kind of heavy. If you've got good like real 1x19 airplane cable, like 330 seconds is pretty tits.
I think it's been so long since but I think I was running, my last batch I did was 5/64 by 1x19, if I remember right.
See, I've heard of some guys, I'd heard of guys in Alberta using thinner stuff with those stingers on there, or those, especially for coyotes, I don't know about wolves, but for coyotes, those, it looks like a spur, like a power ram, I think is what they're called. Yeah. Like the spring, it looks like a spring for a 330 conibear.
Yeah, I have some.
Just rips that thing closed
instantly. Like, so in Saskatchewan, I think I might be fucking wrong here. I'm usually wrong, but in Saskatchewan, I think it's fucking mandatory to use those power rams, and they fucking just kill instantly, man. Like, kind of when you're snaring Tyler knows this, but for people that don't know, but when you're snaring conventionally, unless you get entanglement right away, you end up with what's called a death circle. And when you do that trail runs cold usually, right? Like, especially if you're baiting. So your coyotes are moving in and out of the bait. When you get a death circle, that's it. They're not going to take that trail anymore. And one of the advantages of using them power rams is it just fucking stones them, like boom, smack. Then when them things open up, there's no death circles, there's no nothing. So guys in Saskatchewan, and I think there's Alberta guys that use them too, but like when you can just keep using that same set over and over and over again, which is not usually very common when you're just conventionally snaring, right?
Yeah. Because they'll even if they get a good wrap up on stuff, like I mentioned, you want to like anchor your snares up to something as high as you can get it and flexible with other shit around that they'll quickly wrap themselves around and it'll choke them out. But yeah, and well, which kind of side note for guys that they're trapping like with footholds too. A lot of guys up here will make, when you get, or even if you've caught something in a foothold or you got a kill circle with your snare, guys will make sets, just blind sets right off the edge. Cause a lot of times wolves or coyotes will come right up to the edge and kind of like not prance, but they'll beat up that snow right around the edge of that kill circle, but they won't step in it. So some guys will catch shit with footholds, but if you're just snaring, yeah, you're pretty much screwed at that particular spot.
Well, so I have power rams. I have a half a dozen in the shed. Actually, the guy I put on my story the other day, that guy that mentored me in trapping, and he died last year. But before he died, he gave me a half a dozen of his old power rams. So I got to build some cable for him. I just can't get over the fact that these power rams, like they just sit, you just lean them up against a tree, right? So they kind of look funny just sitting there, but they work. So if I do any trapping this year, I'd like to take them out and just try them. I've never used them, but I know guys, like videos I've watched. I watched one guy in Saskatchewan. I think he was trying to catch 1,000 coyotes one year with them. And I think he killed snared like 500 or 600 with them fucking things. So.
Yeah, I seen some of them guys I was like friends with on Facebook or following, and some of these trapper forums, the numbers them guys are putting up down there in like Alberta and Saskatchewan are just stupid numbers of coyotes that they're snaring. Like, I don't know how a guy could, it's tits when they're worth some money. I don't know how a guy could keep up with peeling them.
I was getting $100 a fur here a few years ago, and I told my wife, I said, I will not fucking skin these cocksuckers unless it's $100. I won't even do it for 80. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah.
Because you're just gagging. I was gag on some of them stinking bastards, but
coyote. I think coyotes stink worse than wolves do, and I've skinned hundreds of wolves.
Yeah. So, but you can turn some numbers. Seems like there's an endless supply of coyotes and stuff around here, but I don't know. I haven't trapped in a few years. I've been kind of lazy, just hiding out in the wintertime, but.
Well, since I had kids, it's like, my priorities had to change a little bit and started taking them ice fish, doing a little bit of ice fishing and stuff like that.
That's what I'm going to do this year too. Take them ice fishing. It's hard, because you know what it's like when you're running snare baits and fucking foothold and you got to go, man, like every day. Like you're on moving bait, checking wire and putting cable out. It's a fucking full-time gig, so that's the same with me too, man.
Especially down there and with that many critters, I would usually check my lines, and it's pretty common up here, like once to twice a week, depending on where your gear is at and the type of sets you got, just so you don't have anything sitting there too long. But yeah, even that, just the time it takes to get anywhere and get any work done, any progress. Yeah, just time consuming. So that's okay though. I'll get back into it here when the kids get a little older.
Did you used to do lots of footholding?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, I just probably mostly foothold stuff. I trapped mainly, like marten was kind of what I was after, and then everything else was just a bonus. And there's, another area we trapped cats, lynx mostly. Well, lynx were the only type of cats, but we would trap some other stuff. We'd catch odd wolverine here and there. The odd wolf here and there. I never caught a lot of wolves. I was never in like great, like really reliable wolf country, but I learned enough to be dangerous with it. And then, skin. Mostly I slaved away for a fur buyer for a few years every winter. So I'd skun hundreds of wolves.
What kind of footholds were you using for wolf?
I caught some in those Minnesota, the welded up Minnesota 750s.
Four spring, yeah. Same as me. That's what I use, yeah.
They're nice they're easy to hide. They lay nice and flat. But man, like, especially if you get a lot of snow, like they take a lot of maintenance to keep them working. It doesn't take too much snow to like pack up to where they'll pop them and not grab the paw. I mean, I still think I'm not, a wolf trapping expert, but I think my favorite are those Alaskan number 9s or number 9 Mannings, which those are a fucking mean wolf trap. Like they're 9 inches in diameter and they're strong. Like they've been pretty much perfected over a couple generations of wolf trapping. And a local guy he's been on my podcast, which I need to have him back on. He currently owns that company and is making them.
Oh yeah. See, I would use the Minnesota 750 4 springs, like the offset, for coyotes, because I footholded the fuck out of coyotes. But the only reason I did that is because I would catch the odd wolf. And a Minnesota 750, a lot of guys, you hear a lot of hardcore wolf guys will say like the Minnesota 750 is a glorified beaver trap. But I caught wolf with it. I caught a few wolf with it, and it worked pretty good for it. But one of the trap I wanted to try was there's a couple guys from BC, Dan Lay, I think his brother's name's Kyle Lay, and I see here a local trapping store sells them, and they're a LAY trap, but they're expensive as hell.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard of those ones, but those Alaska number 9s are like $120 with 10 foot of chain, or that may even be before you got 10 foot of chain on them and a swivel. Yeah, when they're set up right, man, they are tough. Like sometimes you'll jack up the dog on them. Need to work on them a little bit, but generally, like I don't know that I've seen a tougher wolf trap. Like I thought I got a couple of those Bridger Braun, like number 9s. Yeah. And they're a pretty tough, like pretty cool looking trap, but they're slow. Those Alaska number 9s are fast.
See, a lot of I can't remember. It was a big hype a few years ago, and I still don't know if they're doing it, but they would call them padded jaws, but they were rubber, which was fine because so the trap was offset, but the rubber wasn't right. But the problem with is in the fucking cold, that rubber is just like steel, right? So you end up just with a closed jaw trap, which is defeating the purpose, right? So for anybody listening that doesn't know, when you have a trap, the reason for the offset jaw, because back in the day, like, everybody says coyote ugly, you chew your leg off. So when you would trap with the old style traps, when they would close tight, it would pinch off the circulation, and then the canine couldn't feel their foot, and they would chew it off and then leave your trap. Or
it would break the bones and they would twist it off.
Yeah. So the reason for the offset jaw is basically you want to just hold them. You don't want to hurt them. You just want to hold them till you can get there to dispatch them. Like I've stuck my hand in the Minnesota 750s, and it doesn't hurt. Like it holds it. So
I've been caught. I've been caught in just about every trap I've set except a 330. But
oh fuck, I got a buddy of mine, man. He was just getting into beaver trapping, right? So, and he's kind of a wiry fucker, but he got both fucking hands in a 330, and I think it was a Belial 330, because them Belials are torquey. And I was like, "What was your plan?" Because he had to like pull his fingers, like fingernails, out of the fucking trap. And I'm like, "What was your plan?" He's like, "I was going to phone you with my nose." He was going to dial.
Oh man!
So after that, he started. So after that, he started running traps, them fucking trap setters, the safeties. But here's what I did. I don't know what you did with 330s and shit, or any conibear, is I would just not set the trigger and leave your safeties on. You know what I mean? Like put your hook across, but don't set the trigger. Like the trigger can just sit there and flop. Then set your trap when you're ready and everything's done. And then I would set the trigger. Then I would take the safeties off. It's like I never fucked around with the trigger set. I don't know what you did, but
yeah, I'd set the trigger, but I wouldn't pop the safeties off until I was done touching it. Like I was always super careful. The 330s scared me. I mean, I trap a lot of marten with 110s. Guys in like on the islands and like warmer areas, they swear by the 120s because they say they kill them quicker. But I mean, shit, most of my marten trappings was number 1 long springs because it's cold enough up here that they just twist it off the pole and hang there, and it kills them really quick.
Marty from the Alaskan trapping show, old Marty there, he would fly in and trap marten. But up here, we can't use them long sprigs. It all has to be conibear shit.
Yeah. And conibears really are like, they're more, it's arguably more humane. Like it zaps them right away. I just hate, like where I was hunting, you had to bring a bunch of extra conibears because you got a marten in them. You can't get it out. You got to take it all the way back home and thaw it out to get them out of the trap without tearing them up. And I mean, that's the whole point of catching them, is to not tear the shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I lost a lot of sleep over the years, like wondering if I had taken the safeties off my 330s, but no, I didn't. I typically used setters even to set those 330s, and I kept my freaking hands clear there.
Mm-hmm.
But I've caught myself in just about, I've caught myself in number 9s. You set shit to a hair trigger, you're going to get whacked.
Did you ever see, well, I was going to say, so the only top lot award I ever won was for marten. I caught a nice big male one time, and I never ever did get a top lot. Like I got some, I can't remember how they even used to grade coyotes, but I got some pretty nice coyotes. But the only top lot I ever got was with a marten, and so I did catch quite a few marten actually back in the day. But what I was going to say too with them 110s, do you ever see guys convert them? Because you get a little trap shy with them marten sometimes, like they won't stick their head through them wires. So a lot of guys will they'll put the fucking conibear like upside down, and then they'll fold the spring trigger down. And they make then they slide that like cardboard shit over it, and it's like it makes a little pan. So when the marten steps on it, so they're not as like. Oh,
I've seen those, and I've seen those little pans and shit. I don't know that I know anybody who's ever used them. I've resorted to just putting the bait on the trigger and smacking them in the head with it. Yeah, and that seems to work okay.
Works. Yeah. But I have had some trap shy like come up, check your box, and then they just don't want nothing to do with it, and they just turn out. But so that was always a thing. I was like, man, yeah.
Even the males, huh?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was a male, but I've had a few that were trap shy with the triggers. Like that's why I always wanted. I haven't trapped marten in fucking handful of years now, but back in the day, I was going to try those pan sets. One thing I wanted to ask you: what do you use for a pan cover too for your wolf traps? Or you
usually I just use like butcher paper or wax paper.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, wax paper.
I just like crinkle it up real good, and obviously, like if you're trapping canines, like keeping everything absolutely clean, and like switching. I carry a bunch of them. We call them like monkey face gloves. You get them at the hardware store or whatever. Just cotton, fuzzy, work gloves. Carry a bunch of pairs of those bagged. So. Anytime you're handling, from the time you boil that trap to anytime you're, any of your stuff that's going to remain at the set, man, the stuff's got to be clean and like no human scent on it, minimal disturbance. But, I forgot what you just asked me.
I just was asking your pan cover, but.
Oh, pan cover. Yeah. Wax paper. So that got me just thinking about how I used to do shit. And I just crinkle up that wax paper real good, and then it's like real flexible, and it covered up with snow.
Yeah, so that's what I did too. But like that guy that mentored me, man, old school trapper, killed a piss pile of wolves, and he told me, he's like, I asked him one time, like, what was the bait? Like, what was your best bait? And he would say that he would go to like the pound when they would euthanize dogs, like stray dogs. And he would get them for free. And he said he figured he had caught over 200 wolves on like just fucking dogs. Like, cause you know what wolves are like. Like if they ever smelled another dog,
they hate dogs.
They go fucking ballistic, man. Like, so he said he would just put dogs out and he would catch the fuck out of wolves.
Well, since you brought it up, I never did it, but I always thought if I like, along those lines, if you could freeze a dog like in a standing up position, it's kind of morbid if you like dogs, but let them freeze like to where you can stand them up. I mean, you may get your set screwed up if you get a dusting of snow, but stand them up on the edge of the trail. I don't know. But I do know that wolves hate dogs. I mean, I've caught them on dog piss, and I've scooped up frozen dog piss and used it to cover up some of their like pee posts, and that seems to work pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I know, fucking all sorts of shit. It's really
them guys that had no shame that figured out the best way to catch stuff.
Yeah. Another thing he told me to use for a pan cover was he would find big beehives and fall, and he would peel them apart and use that paper like out of the beehive. And I did try it. And I did have him dig my setup with it. So I can't really say that they were digging it up because of that, but because he swore that's what he used for pan covers. He would find big beehives and just rip it apart, and then that's what he would carry in a little bucket or whatever. But I don't know.
Interesting. I never would have thought of trying that.
Mm-hmm.
Like even the butcher paper with a wax on one side seems to work pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And I wax my traps too and shit, so they work nice, but.
Yeah. And some guys, I don't know, I wouldn't full on wax dip them. I don't think, because you need to up here. Like, it's typically dry enough. You don't get any freeze thaw. You do sometimes, but most of the winter, like, it's just froze. It's cold. And if I tried waxing shit real heavy, I mean, it got a little dangerous, a little sketchy. Like, it was tough to, like, the traps were fast and easy to, just a little bit too hairy. But I'd typically, when I was boiling, I'd throw a block of wax in there, and then as you're pulling your traps back up out of the water, it floats on, that liquid wax floats on top, and you get a nice little coating of it. But
what I used to boil with is, so like, kind of the rule of thumb when you were foothold, remember, is like, for coyotes and stuff anyway, like, you would catch one and then guys would put a new trap in the hole, right? But I mean, because I caught one time, man, I put a set out, I caught a coyote. And like, when you foothold them, they do I don't really want to call it a death or kill circle, but it was just like where they run around,
just a
right?
drag circle.
Yeah, your drag circle. And they shit and piss everywhere there. And it's just a real hot spot for coyotes. And I would just reset that same trap. I caught 8 coyotes out of that one spot in like a matter of days. And I just kept setting. I actually set more traps there and ended up doubling on a few of them. But so like a lot of guys,
I've seen that with fox too. Yeah.
A lot of guys would say, oh, if you catch on that, you want to pull that trap and put a new one down. But I was always like, fuck, they're not going to really smell that at that point because everything is so contaminated, So it's like, so I would always just put down that trap I had initially caught with, and it always seemed to work with that. But I don't know.
No, yeah, I'd seen the same thing with fox, like you said, after they scent that whole area up, it just attracts more of them. And especially if it's a dirt hole set or a piss post set, I mean, that activity is what's attracting them,
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, usually, or even set more traps or set a trap just outside of the drag circle, in case you get one that doesn't really want to commit to going into it. But yeah, I'd trap fox around town with dog food. Dog food's excellent fox bait.
Did you catch them around town? Like you're in Fairbanks, right?
Fairbanks, yeah. Oh yeah, full fox and coyotes. Catch them on dog food and dirt hole sets.
Was it Frank who was fucking waging war on coyotes when he was on one podcast? I think he was. I don't know if it was
him. It might have been someone else, or maybe right by his house. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, I can hardly remember what day it is, so that doesn't say too much.
I remember we got where I grew up, we got a bunch of horses and stuff, and we've lost game, or not game, but we lost livestock to wolves before they've came in and done work on our place. So it's a pretty common thing around like where I live. So like that's kind of how we grew up. Like, we grew up snaring and trapping because we had to kind of. It was not like it wasn't really like a fun thing. Like I remember going and checking traps before I go to school.
Yeah.
So shit like that. It's kind of what we grew up doing. But it's a good thing, man. I think too, lots of people should get into trapping. It's a fun thing to do. And you can learn a lot on how to like hunt and read game and read sign and learn shit and how scent works, all of it, you know?
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I've heard it. I don't know whoever told me, but they were like, it seems to be true. Is say, you know, you can have a guy that's good at fishing or a guy that's good at hunting may suck at trapping, but everybody I've ever met that's really good at trapping is pretty fucking good at everything.
There's some fucking guys in Alberta, and that's a true statement what you just said, yeah. But there's a few guys in Alberta, man, that do serious work on wolves. Like, it's terrifying how good they are at catching wolves. Like, I wouldn't even discuss wolf trapping with them because
there's guys like that up here too.
They're just fucking good, and that's their thing, man, and they're just freaking awesome at it, you know. So.
Yep. No, there's one guy in particular I'm thinking of around Fairbanks. So there's quite a few like kind of legendary type wolf trappers from that came out of Fairbanks, and some of them are still around slaying stuff. You know, I mean, it's humbling. I don't know anything compared to those guys. You know, I know enough to talk about it a little bit and be somewhat dangerous, but yeah, those guys are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think I've only ever footholded like two wolves. That's a hard thing to do. You try to get them to step on a little pan, you know.
It's tough. Well, and then to have your pan, you know, wolf trapping's a game of frustration, man. It's having, keeping putting your gear in the right spots, doing it correctly, having the wolves come back to it and then have everything working when they do.
Mm-hmm. See, like kind of up around here, like the packs I kind of like have hunted up here, they were always on a 2 or 2.5 week circle. And they would come back through, it was around like 2 week mark, unless they got tied up on a kill or something, then they take a little bit longer. But so you could always kind of hang your hat on that when you're going to be catching, right? But I don't know.
Yep.
Awesome.
Oh, makes sense.
Should we put a pin in it, or what? You got a birthday party to go to?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got some stuff. It's my oldest turned 7, so he's an adult now, as far as he's concerned. So
that's like my boy too.
Yeah,
he's
better.
8 going on 30.
Yeah, he tells me that this was not like even recently. This was months ago. He tells my wife, tells his mama, I wish you would stop treating me like a child. I'm like, you're 6, dude.
I fucking laughed. My one boy, I took him deer hunting. We were in the blind. And I said to him, I seen a chicken come out here the other day. Every 10 minutes after that, he's like, Dad, do you think that chicken's going to come out tonight? I get a shot? I said, maybe. We'll see. Okay, he was just geared up for grouse.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at Wilderness Locals. If you want to support the podcast, please check out the gear, articles, and whatever else we're up to on the website at www.wildernesslocals.net.